So when it comes to the Mayflower and the crossing over the Atlantic to America, did you ever wonder what they ate aboard ship? Maybe the passengers and the crew? I mean, this was not a cruise ship. So most of the food or provisions on the Mayflower were put aboard ship in Southampton. As the time neared for departure, Captain Jones's crew loaded and stowed the food, water, and other ship stores. Besides food, provisions included all the necessary supplies: candles, firewood, brooms, buckets, rope, pots, pans, tools, beer, wine, and dozens of items needed for self-sufficiency during the voyage. The ship's carpenter may have been called upon to build stalls and coops for the goats, pigs, and poultry. Staved wooden casks, commonly known as barrels, contain visuals such as salted beef, pork, fish, fruit, wine, or ale, and of course water. Others held stores such as pitch candles and tallow. The only domestic livestock carried on board the Mayflower were goats, pigs, poultry, and dogs. It is possible that a few sheep, rabbits, and poultry were taken for immediate consumption. It is also likely that household pets such as cats and dogs, cage-singing birds, were taken on board by their owners, although no direct proof of the fact has been found. There is evidence that goats, pigs, and poultry and dogs went ashore with the colonists at New Plymouth, and it was also certain that in the early days of Plymouth colony they had neither cattle nor horses and sheep. At sea and on shore, nanny goats were their sole source of milk for some time. When it came to fresh meat, goat and pork were their only choices for many months, except for poultry. However, it's fairly certain that in view of the breeding value of their goats, pigs, and poultry, few of them were actually consumed as food. So when it comes to cooking, its galley and its primitive facilities were much more place in preparation of food and storing utensils than for use of fire. The arrangements for the latter were particularly basic and were restricted to the open hearth box filled with sand, where main cooking utensils were the tripod kettle and the frying pan. The sand hearth and tripod kettle could be set up in almost any part of the ship, where the smoke from the box could be managed effectively. It was often found in the forecastle between decks and on the open deck when the weather was fine. Taking a look at some of the actual food items, the bread category would have included biscuits or ship's bread. This would have been stored in barrels. Oatmeal, again in barrels or in hogsheads. Rye meal in hogsheads. Butter in firkins, and cheese, Hollands, and English would be stored in boxes. They did have eggs, but they would be pickled and they would be stored in tubs. The fish would include haberdine or salt-dried cod. This would be stored in boxes. Smoked herring, also in boxes. As for the meats, it would include beef, salt or corned beef, and that would be in barrels. Dry salted beef in barrels. Smoked meat would be in barrels. Ox or cow's tongue, and this would also be in boxes. When it came to pork, it'd be bacon smoked in sacks or boxes. There'd be salt pork, corn pork, and this would be stored in barrels. The ham and the shoulders, they would be smoked and they would be stored in canvas sacks or hogsheads. Of course, they would need salt, and that would be in bags and perhaps barrels. The vegetables, there were vegetables on board. They would include beans. They'd be stored in bags or barrels. Cabbages in sacks and barrels. Onions in sacks. Turnips in sacks. Parsnips in sacks. Peas would be stored in barrels. Vinegar would be stored in hogsheads. And the beer would be put in casks. The brandy and the gin were no small or unimportant part from the point of view of the provisional supply, and they would be kept in bottles. And of course, they would need their alcohol. So that was just a little taste or sample, if you will, on what they actually had to consume aboard ship for the voyage. I hope you're enjoying the series, and until my next video, I'll talk to you soon.